Welcome to the podcast. I'm here with Jessica Cerato, certified numerologist. Hi, Jessica.
Hey Bree, how are you?
Good. Thank you for joining me today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So I wanted you to share. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you said, my name is Jessica, and I am a certified numerologist. And I wasn't always this, right? So where did this come from? I mean, I numbers have always been a part of my life. As a young child, I would look around, and other kids' journals would be filled with pictures and words, and mine would be numbers. Um, and it was just something that always fascinated me. Um, but growing up, I didn't know what a numerologist was. And because I was good with numbers, I went into business and finance. And that was my path for a long time until I became a mom. I'm the mom of two young girls. And in seeing them grow and just seeing how different they are, really got me curious about like what really makes us unique. What what um what is that all about? And more importantly, like when we know that we are unique and we know that we are different, how can we really lean into that and share our gifts with the world? And that really brought me to look at numbers in a whole other way and to understand that numbers have energy and we all have different energy and how that kind of combines. So, yeah, that is my life's work now. Kind of a like many of us, right? We take a lot of twisty turnies in our life, and we end up where we are now. But it is all part of our path, I believe. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And it's interesting that when you were young, that you were so intrigued with numbers, but didn't even know that numerology or what a numerologist was. Like that is so. It just makes me think like like they always say that our passion, we discover it either we know what it is deep, but we don't. Sometimes it takes a bit to discover it or find it. So it's like you already knew but didn't realize what it was. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, you said, I think that's the same for a lot of us, right? And when we open up to the possibility of what is out there, we can find so many unique and fascinating things. So it's really important. What this has also taught me is to really trust my intuition. And really prioritize my intuition over my intellect. And that is my hope for everyone too, is to really understand that we have intellect, we have our ego for a reason. It's here to keep us safe, but our intuition is our superpower, and to really lean into that and trust that.
Absolutely. So I'd love for you to share, what is a numerologist?
Exactly the question I was asking right before I started to study. So, numerology is the science of numbers and the study of numbers. And it is actually an ancient practice. Pythagoras, who was this Greek mathematician and scientist, he's the father of, they say, of numerology. And he was actually studying music at the time. And he was hypothesizing that musical notes, of which there are seven, have this unique frequency and this energy to them. And through that, he developed and discovered that actually numbers have energy as well. Each number has a different frequency and it oscillates at a different rate per second. And that is why we actually feel numbers differently. This is why when you see numbers, if you ever see like repeating numbers, or you see numbers on a license plate or just around you, you get this, it catches your eye and it makes you pause. That's actually the energy hitting your energy field. And so through his work, he helped to, like I said, understand that all numbers have an energy. And it's when we put those numbers together where we can really see how they start to interact. And each one of us as a person, depending on the date that we were born, of course, carries a different numerology. And so it's really kind of looking inside our coding, our kind of numerical DNA, and seeing what energy we hold and what the potential is. Because I would say it's not like fortune telling. It's not like you are this. It's the potential that we have inside of us. It's what you were just saying before. It's this knowing or feeling inside of us that there is something, but we can't quite connect the dots. And numerology can help us connect the dots and give us more information about our gifts, about our challenges, about what lessons we're meant to learn, and then also how we interact with others in our life. Those people who you just seem to click with and those people who really seem to challenge you. Those are there's a lot of things at play there, but one of the basic things is the numerological energy is either coming together or kind of repelling. And by knowing that, of course, you can lean into your own strengths, but you can also have empathy for others, even when they're challenging you, just understanding that they're different. And it just really gives us this language, universal language that we can all start to speak and understand. And really, the purpose is to share our unique gifts because we are all so different, down to the second you were born, right?
Uh, that's so cool. Like I have heard of numerology, but I can't say that I knew like the background of it, like I knew that numbers attract, like I would attract numbers. Like I know one in particular, which as we talked about earlier, I was born on the 22nd and I always see 22 every time, especially when I'm going through something in life. It'll be like 22, 22, or 222. So it's cool you mentioned that.
Yeah, those repeating numbers come to you as a message and a reminder just to pause to receive the message.
I am curious, what what is the number that you tend to see a lot?
Maybe my mind works a little bit differently, but I see repeating ones quite often. But whenever I see a number, my brain automatically calculates it down to one. So, for example, like when I see 861, my mind sees six. 8 plus 6 plus 1 equals 15. 1 plus 5 equals 6. So when I see a combination of numbers, I actually don't see the different energies. My mind kind of adds them all together really quickly and comes up with one number. And so this is interesting because energetically it feels more strongly to me. But if you can imagine, remembering long sequences of numbers are hard because I only remember one. So, if I'm looking for an address and someone tells me 1025, it's 1025 Nairn Court, and I automatically think, okay, so I'm going to 8, and I get to the street and there is no 8. So I think this is all to say that some people will see individual numbers. People might see patterns of numbers like you see, like the 2 repeating, and others might just notice a whole bunch of intellectually or logically or seemingly different numbers, but it's actually the way that we add them together that can also make a bit of an impact.
It's funny that you say that because I didn't think about that, of how, I knew how you get to a number in numerology. I knew that you had to like add it up, but it makes sense that if that's your about numbers, you're gonna see it like that.
Yeah, see it differently. And for those of you who might be listening who are like, oh, numbers are not my thing, another part of numerology is using the playing cards, a deck of playing cards. Our calendar that we have currently right now is actually based on the deck of playing cards. So I'm sure everyone knows about, or maybe has a deck in their house. So there are 52 cards and there are 52 weeks in the year. There are 7 days in the week because 5 plus 2 equals 7. We have 4 seasons and there's 4 suits. We have 12 months. There's 12 court cards. There are 13 numbers in each suit, and there are 12 signs of the zodiac plus the sun. And if you add up all the numbers of the deck of cards, and if you're home, if you're listening, I encourage you to do that. You're going to come up with 364. And then you take the joker and you get 365 and a quarter. And that's exactly how many days we have in our year. So all of these cards are also sending us messages. Like I said, our calendar is based on this, and it's how these numbers and these dates come together that can really help us put context to the energy. Like, do you ever feel like you feel something, but you can't quite put words to it? And because of that, you start to question, am I really feeling this? But numerology can really give us a sense of calmness and confidence because it actually can put words and context to what we are feeling. It's like the weather forecast, and you can kind of prepare for it a little bit better.
Okay, I'm still over here on the whole our deck of cards.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. Oh my gosh. I've been learning a lot today.
Yeah. And so each of us, based on the date of our birth, we of course have our ruling number, which a lot of people know about numerology, and we have our grids, but we also have a playing card, and you are the 8 of clubs. And so then when you learn a little bit more about that card, again, it's an added layer of what we are meant to do in this world. And it kind of gives you hints and nudges about your path.
So how would you read, like, so you said, like, let's say if I am the 8 of clubs, what does that mean? Like, what can I get from the 8 of clubs when I look at it?
So the 8 of clubs, if we look at the suit of clubs, that's all about knowledge and communication and conversation. So you are someone who likes to think, who likes to communicate. And I laugh because we're speaking on a podcast, so of course. And the 8, if we think about the 8 of what this means, it's a flow, it's a back and forth. It's it's an independent number, but it also has this softness to it of an ebb and flow. So you are meant to live your life in constant communication, allowing your voice to be heard, but also hearing the voices of others. And it's this gentle, I don't say balance, but it's more like the sands of the hourglass, right? Of how the sand flows back and forth between there. And like I said, it's definitely a mental energy. And so very strong thinking and rationalizing sometimes. And so, of course, if you think about, we just talked about all the great parts of this. The challenge sometimes with the 8 of clubs is getting stuck in the mind a little bit of worry, a little bit sometimes of a fixed mindset of getting focused on one thing. So I see you a little smiling there. Yeah. So you've got like I said, the sparkle of each number and the diamonds in the rough. We talked about how each number has an energy, but the reason why you and I might feel an energy different is, of course, it has a spectrum. So there's like this in the flow side, this positive or this empowered side. And then there's the disempowered side, or don't like to use the word negative, but maybe like in the mud. And it's everything in between. So, today's energy, I could feel really excited and expansive and wanting to do a lot of things. But on the negative side of the same number is feeling a little bit of overwhelm, or things are moving too quickly, or there's so many ideas in my head that I'm actually stuck in indecision. And that's why, we each experience it a bit differently.
Wow. That's, first off, you're accurate on the other side, the flip side.
Yeah.
Worry, it's not even a little bit of worry. Worry is like my main go-to. I definitely get stuck in my mind a lot because I'm always thinking, and I used to not be able to sleep over it, but lately I've been able to sleep a bit better. So I was curious. So I know, like, there's our power number, like we talked about how you and I are 11s. Like, tell us a bit about those numbers.
Sure. So you get the ruling number by adding up all of the digits of your birth date and reducing it down until you get a number between 2 and 11. And this is your ruling number. And this is influence you have for your entire life. And each one kind of represents this archetype of how we show up in the world. But again, there are these how we show up in the positive way and how we might challenge ourselves a little bit. And just by knowing those, we can it can help us overcome a little bit, or at least we still might be in the mud side, but at least knowing why we are. And then from there's so many different parts of the chart that we can go into, because I know probably are thinking, well, if you're an 11 and I'm an 11 and we don't feel so similar, like how does that work? Well, the ruling number is just one part of your chart. And so what you and I were talking about, the next thing we can look at is this energy grid. And you can just imagine this tic-tac-toe board, and you put all of the digits of your birth date in the tic-tac-toe board based on where energetically they fall. This is where a numerologist can help you. And it can create tic-tac-toes or arrows, numbers that connect, numbers that kind of float by themselves, and also blank arrows where 3 in a row is not filled. And this is where it's so interesting. You and I are both 11s, but we both have very different energetic grids. And we were talking before, you have this arrow of curiosity. You love to ask questions. You like to experience things for yourself. It's kind of like you need to see it to believe it. Whereas I don't have that arrow. I have a different arrow. I have the arrow of frustration, which is high expectations and getting really frustrated maybe when that doesn't happen. And I also have the arrow of hypersensitivity. And this is where I feel other people's emotions so strongly that if I'm not aware of it, sometimes it overwhelms me. And those are just 3 of the possible 16 arrows you could have, right? So then by looking at these arrows, you can kind of see, okay, this is where, this is how I'm feeling, and this is what I can do about it. Or like, speaking of families, like this is how my kids are. This is how I'm different from them. And this is how they're different from each other. So can I parent differently? At work, how you interact with your coworkers is different. And so far we've talked about our energy that we carry for life. But now we start to think about, okay, as the universal energy, so as the energy around us shifts, where we are in comparison to that also shifts. So we also can create forecasts for ourselves. Our energy shifts, always in cycles. So it is true, what goes around comes around. Like, they always come in cycles, but we each, in different parts of our life, we are in different numerical seasons. And again, just by knowing that, you can kind of see how the shifts take place. And that's why sometimes you feel really close to someone and you maybe start to drift apart, or you start to feel differently. And it's because our energy, although at its core, there are some energies we carry for life, we are very much cyclical beings, and our energy does change over our lifetime too.
Numerology is so much bigger than I realized. Like, I mean, I knew that it was big, but there's so many, is it facets?
Yeah.
So many facets that I didn't realize that come to play with it. And I'm very curious. So what what helps, like, let's say someone, wants to go to a numerologist, like what do you feel like the answers could be? If it could be like on your life, on relationships, on everything, you feel that it could help?
Yeah, usually I work with people who are maybe at a crossroads or making a decision. A lot of times, I work with a lot of business people because that is my background, right? So, learning how to harness the energy to create impact in their business. I work with families to figure out how to parent better, because let's just think, even if we know nothing about numerology, typically, right now, there's a difference between if you were born in the 1900s versus if you were born in the 2000s. So you and I automatically have a 1 and a 9 in our chart. Very idea focused, very idealist, very again, these expectations of we'd like to move. And then if we think about this generation, which don't have those numbers automatically, they may, but it's not a default. Their default is the 2. And the 2 is all about intuition and connection and compassion, feeling, right? So you can kind of see this in kids. And just again, by knowing those differences, we can really help to support them better. So typically people come to me and I do readings on their life, but I also do a snapshot in time of what numerological energy is in their field right now, so they could take advantage of it. And I do a lot of relationship readings, but relationships could mean, lovey-dovey relationships, but it also could mean work relationships or parent-child or sibling. It's really, it starts to unlock. And I feel that numerology is really just a mirror. A lot of what I say to my clients, if we're both honest, they already know it, right? And so it's just, again, like providing this context or this like aha. And then once you can accept it and know it, you can actually act on it. And so it's really empowering people to make a change that they've been considering, or let their gifts shine, right? And I kind of, what people might view as their challenges, me from a science perspective, is actually their biggest strength. And so kind of just switching your head around, oh, like that's actually might not be a weakness. This, if I flip it, this is actually is a strength, and that's why I really need to focus on it.
I love that. And I love that you can take it, and I feel like sometimes people need to see their own things on paper. Like
Yes.
if it's on paper, it's real.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I know, like, I have my intuition, but I feel like I try to question it too. Like, even though I know it's real, it's there, I'll be like, but am I sure? Or is this just my head wanting this to be? So I can see how having, like, even if they know already, having it on paper and saying, okay, it says this, so therefore I can do this. I got this. I can see that being so beneficial in all those in parts of life. So that's really cool. It makes me want to do this reading.
Well, you got one. I'm here for it. This, and just like you said, it also, our numbers tell us how we each access our intuition differently. Because I think part of the reason why maybe some people don't trust their intuition is they see others using it and it doesn't look like the way they feel. So, some people who use their intuition very openly, they feel things. They might feel warm, or they just feel it. I feel nothing. It's all like visions in my head. It's very much so if I didn't know that, I would be questioning, well, I don't really feel it. I'm not really getting this warm, but I sense it. I see it. And so the numbers can teach us, yes, we all access our intuition differently, and you're meant to, and you're not meant to be like anybody else. And just by knowing that, you can again trust it more. Yeah.
That's awesome. And it makes sense too, because I can also say that I don't know if I feel it. Like, it depends. If I'm in a situation that I know is unsafe, I feel, do not do this or do not go there. But I always hear in my head, like, do not do that.
Yeah.
Or this is not for you.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel like, I guess, the downloads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, I don't know if this is possible because I do not know numerology that well, but for each number between, I think you said it's 2 and 11, do you have like a snippet of what each number is about?
Sure.
Like, okay.
Yeah, we can talk. So the 2 is the connector. is all about compassion and really wanting to converse and connect. On the negative side, that can turn a little bit into like codependency or needing someone else. Um, Again, in the positive side, it's an integration of ideas and it's collaboration. But sometimes in the negative side, that can manifest into confusion or actually prioritizing someone else over you. The 3 is all about creativity and expansion, and it's a very mental energy. And so creativity isn't always clay pots and painting. It's creativity of the mind, right? And so when you can really lean into that, um, and let your creativity flow, this is where you will make the biggest impact in the world. On the negative side, the 3 is all about indecision. If you think about the 3, even on the playing card, the 3 dots, right? The 3 symbols. Do I go here or here? Do I go here or here? And you're so busy deciding which way to go that you ever actually never go anywhere. So that is the disempowered side. The 4 we look at is the table. Really strong structure and foundational, very strong leadership with the 4. And the negative side is sometimes too structured or too stable or not able to move. The inflexibility of the 4. The 5, I like to call the hummingbird. The 5 is like all about freedom and being curious and learning and teaching and really called by a higher purpose, but trying to figure out. I think of the 5, if you think of what the 5 looks like, it's like this rocking horse, rocking back and forth, but enjoying the ride of that. On the negative side, it's clinging to the past or not feeling strong enough to move forward. 5s are also really great arguers. That could be a really good thing. Like they're very strong debaters, but when that turns a little bit into the negative side is when they're resistant to maybe looking at things a different way. The 6s are all about love and harmony. They are meant to be in this world to bring two things together. Very harmonious energy, very loving energy. If you think about the 6, the shape of it, it's like this warm hug. You're like snuggling someone in that little cocoon of the 6. But in the negative side, it's when this really nice warm hug kind of turns into a stranglehold. When you try to hold things like a little bit too closely, right? When you get attached, when you have this material focus. And so a little bit of anxiety with the 6. The 7s are the rebels. The 7s are like, if you think about the number 7, it's making a hard left-hand turn, is being out in front and like showing others what is possible, really taking action, really trusting themselves, really being brave, and also taking the road less traveled. On the negative side, sometimes the rebellion comes out in like a little bit of proving energy or being reckless and closed off from support. And really, the 7 is meant to be in action. So when a 7 is stuck, they feel really stuck. And so they really need to keep in action. And they can't be thinking of the how. They just need to go and trust that they'll figure it out. The 8, again, like we just always use the imagery of the numbers. The 8 has really 2 distinct sides, like the grace of an angel and the strength of a lion. And it's really these kind of 2 sides, at sometimes at odds, right? But it's understanding that that they're meant to be 2 polarities, and it's not to balance them, but it's to allow things to flow. Perfectionism is a really hard one for the 8s because they are beautiful masters. They are the people that you want to help you out with these complex problems, but sometimes the negative side can be stuck in perfection. We're almost there. The 9, everyone's like, where's my number? So the 9 is the lighthouse. The 9 is this really focused on their higher purpose. And the 9 can look around. If you're a 9, you can look around at people in your life and you can see the potential in everything. And that's an awesome thing, except for maybe when you have people in life who you feel aren't meeting up to the potential. And that's when you can become a little bit of critical, perceived as being critical. And also, the nines want others people's lights to shine, and they don't necessarily like their own to shine. But that's the role of the nine, is to really keep their light on for the lighthouse. We have the tens, who are this big giant wheel and who are interested in everything. They just have so much going on, which in and of itself is a really good thing and can be their greatest challenge. And then we come to the 11s, which are you and I, which are this really wanting to help others who might be less fortunate. Really, really focus on equality, and having a strong sense of what is right and wrong, which again goes right into the negative side of it, is sometimes this really black and white thinking, or being a judgmental, most likely of ourselves. And so really, and we want people to go, we want to bring people higher. We want ourselves to go higher. And so there is these really high expectations of the 11.
Thank you.
So
wow.
I know that was it. But I'm sure everyone listening maybe heard themselves, or heard, or could recognize someone else in their life as part of those numbers. And remember, even if that's not your ruling number, you might have that number somewhere in your chart, or it might be showing up more strongly in your energy at certain times. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because some of the numbers that you were talking about, I could think of certain people in my mind. I'm like, oh my gosh, I bet you
Yeah.
she has that number in her chart. Well, not as a bad thing, as good.
Yeah.
Just like they're the beautiful parts. But I do love too that each number has the other side, because I think it's important to know both sides of yourself, which we usually call that our shadow side.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really cool. Now, I know we talked about before we got live that you, well, not live, but that you have wrote or you have a free book.
I do. Yeah, it's for those who are more interested in numerology and wanting to learn more about your ruling number. So it'll teach you how to calculate it, and it'll take you through the steps. So even if you're not a math person, I promise you're going to know what your ruling number is. And then just a little bit about what we talked about here, but expanding on, what are the strengths of your ruling number and what might be the challenges. And of course, once you know the calculation, you can calculate for other people in your life and share them. So I would love, everyone to download that. It's on my website, and it's a really easy way to start playing in the numerology. And I also have a free calendar that talks about the universal energy. So it's kind of like a forecast for the month, what we can expect energetically coming up. And that's also something that you can start to play with, because it's your personal energy, yes, but we don't live in a bubble, although sometimes we wish that we do, right? And so it is important to kind of get a sense of what's happening energetically kind of in the world. And people can have that too, so they can start to play with it a little bit.
Oh, that's a really cool resource. And thank you for sharing that with us, because I feel like it's going to have so much information and kind of like diving in deeper. And I absolutely plan on using that resource, checking into your reading, because all of this just sounds so intriguing to me, as you know, from my arrow.
Yeah. And that's my hope with sharing, is to really bring numbers mainstream. Everyone can feel numbers. You don't, quote unquote, need to be good at math. And it's just putting it in a way that everyone can see themselves in numbers, and just to play, right? It's also fun just to play and see what comes with the numbers too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing all of this today. I wanted to see, like, where can our listeners find you?
Sure. So I was laughing because you and I were talking earlier, Bree. One thing we didn't talk about, which I'll insert it here, is that our names also hold numerological energy. So each letter of the alphabet it equates to a different number, and we can add them together. And so this helps when we're choosing names, or why when we say certain names, we feel something. All this to say, my parents made it very easy because I am an 11 and my name, Jessica Cerato, is an 11. So when I open my business, I'm keeping it very simple. So you can find me at all things Jessica Cerato. My website, jessicacerato.com, Instagram at jessica.cerato. Those are two really great places to connect. And you can find those free ebooks and the free calendars right on my website. So if you need help finding them, of course, you can let me know. But yeah. And so now I'm just like, oh, what is your name, right? If you're thinking of any words, right? Like what does your name signify? And what do I help people choose business names? I help people choose when they're deciding if they want to change their name. So also the sound, because if we remember Pythagoras, this is where he first discovered the numbers. He was actually studying music. And so the sound, the vibration of the letters, of how the letters come together to form a sound also has this numerical energy. So, oh my gosh. I mean, there are just so many rabbit holes to go down in numerology, right?
Yeah, now I'm going to be checking my name. I gotta check my name, my husband's name, my dog's name.
There you go. It's endless. Possibilities are endless.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check this probably right after, because once I have something in my mind, I'm like, okay, I need to look at this now. Well, it's been such an honor having you on here, and as you know, I love having my guests share like an affirmation or a mantra. What do you go by for your life?
Mine is quite simple. It's 4 words. I trust my intuition. I trust my intuition. And in doing that, I hope to inspire others to trust theirs as well.
I love that. I feel like I've noticed in life that sometimes each week there's a new pattern or theme for me. And I've been hearing a lot about trusting intuition. Like that's been the theme the past actually week or so. So it's crazy that, I mean, it's not crazy. It's awesome that is what your mantra is.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
It's been so fun to talk to you, Bree. And like I said, I'm going to do your chart right after this and send you all the info. And if anyone's listening, I'm happy to do it for them too. So just get
yeah, absolutely. I'm excited. So, sorry. As everyone knows, I love to end with my beautiful affirmations for everyone. So with that, you are loved, you are worthy, you are cherished, and we are proud of you. Until next time, on the Bee Pod. Bye!